of Reinvent as mobile phone, right? Every few months, version 3.1, 3.2, it's the same for us, right? We need to constantly upgrade ourselves. You need to be agile. So the fundamental bit of it is you need to be curious enough to know what are the emerging trends. They could actually lead you to new pathways.
Welcome back to Wise and Shine. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, SG Budget Babe. If you guys tune in to our previous episode with Cultivating, where she talked about a lady who is very inspiring about how she reinvented herself, how she planned her exit, her next phase of life, her next phase of work. And if you were wondering who that lady was, we're glad to say that we have her here in the studio today.
Yeah.
She's none other than Adeline, and she has her book, which we'll leave her to self-introduce. Adeline.
Yeah, Adeline.
Hi Reggie and Dawn. Thank you for having me on the Wise and Shine podcast. I always like to introduce myself as the author of Reinvent 4.0 and also reinventor.
What does that mean?
Well, because when I published my book, 4.0 actually stands for Industrial Revolution. 4.0 is about the focus on about future of work. And then when I was doing my book launch one day, and I decided, okay, how do I connect this to my own life story? And when I look backwards, I say, hey, actually I've reinvented a few times.
Yeah.
Right, moving from different industry, telco, banking. I took a career break somewhere along the way. I got myself certified as a coach, and that was when I actually coached more than 300 clients, and that gave me the insights for the book. And then I finally decided to go back to work after the career break. I worked for a startup. My last role was a startup, and that was moving from reinvented from a traditional marketer to I would call that maybe an unconventional marketer, because working in a startup is a very, very different ball game, right? And then I decided to reinvent myself. At that time, I wasn't aware of the word reinvent, right? I wasn't consciously doing it, but a coach asked me this question: what would an 80-year-old Adeline thank you for what you do today? That was really quite profound. I thought about it and I said, okay, I've always wanted to be an author. If I don't do it now, when would it be? So I decided that to quit my job, publish the book, and so that was the rest is history.
Yeah. And we worked together in your previous startup.
Yes.
Actually, yeah, we had a project together. So I want to kind of dig a little bit on that. So to give our audience a bit of a basis, right? How is it different as a traditional marketer and like in the startup? How does it feel different?
Well, in a traditional organization, where I came from, right, projects or products need to be perfect, tested before it goes out. Whereas in a startup, we cannot afford to do that because we are funded, right? We have limited funds, we need to be agile, and we do need to have a product ready to launch. So there was a lot of testing, there was a lot of validation being done. So that changed my perspective as well. And plus, I don't have a lot of budget. The irony is that in the earlier part of my career, when I was a junior marketer, I had 20 million marketing budget to spend.
Wow.
And as I progressed in my career, my marketing budget was like 50,000. And well, thankfully, my salary didn't go in that direction.
But to be fair, your skill set also more than made up for it, right?
Yes,
because when you are in a larger organization, you have skills of varying levels and the budget is shared across all. But then when you're in a startup, you have to reiterate faster, and you having gone in at that point in time, you already tested and you know what doesn't work, what does. You were able to avoid like expensive mistakes that others may have made that is not in a startup environment.
So I was literally learning on the fly as
Yeah.
well.
Just put it bluntly, startup no money, man.
So very little money.
No money.
So I had to do a lot of tests and learn, and I realized that was very helpful, right? Because now that when I quit my job and published my book, even in my current role as I have a portfolio of career, I literally do apply the same techniques, test and learn, right? Because you want to de-risk it, right? You want to know, hey, I don't want to take a huge risk. I want to take calculated risk. So it's a lot of learning what works, what doesn't work, pivot if I need to.
Yeah, and that's why we're here today, right? Like we want to talk about this whole reinventing process. How is it like, and how do you be strategic, de-risk, don't burn out? You know, all that good stuff, right? And then in your book, you have a framework around this.
Yes,
right.
The Reinvent stands for something, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to bring us through this?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So R stands for risk-taking mindset. Not taking a risk is a risk. You can appreciate that.
Not
right?
taking a risk is a risk.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Opportunity
true.
cost.
Wow,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Opportunity cost. And E stands for entrepreneurial thinking,
Okay.
because we are no longer in the new world of work. We are no longer paid based on how hard you work, but according to how hard you are to be replaced. And it is exactly what's happening now,
You
right,
feel
with
so?
Gen AI.
You feel so?
Yes, because we are, companies are pressed for pressure. They want to get the best staff, and therefore we need to reframe the way we think about jobs. Not just thinking of doing the job, but what problems can I solve?
So you would say that even for employees, they should adopt entrepreneurial thinking.
Yes.
And the entrepreneurial aspect of this would be thinking of themselves as a business that cannot be cut off.
Yes, absolutely. Because you are your own CEO, right? So then you ask
I'm
yourself.
an entrepreneur, so I
Yeah.
kind of understand.
Exactly.
Yes.
So entrepreneur for entrepreneur makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
that's
What
why I'm
we're
trying to
trying
understand, yeah,
yeah,
the-
understand the entrepreneur
Yes.
for employees.
Yes, I never really appreciate that only until when I started writing my book and I do a lot of reflection. I say, hey, I own my career, I own my future, right? So how can I think like an entrepreneur? What problems can I solve? Right, especially when you have a wealth of experience, right? It's no longer about doing the job because everybody else can do the job. But how can you think differently? So that's how E came about.
Yeah, really profound. Guys, if you haven't already started taking your career more seriously as like your own business and ownership, if you're just like turning up for work and you're dreading the morning commute, or maybe you work from home but you're dreading having to get out of bed, you suffer from Monday blues, you're always worrying whether AI is going to take over your job, maybe this could be the solution, right? Take control and start to really think about how your career is like your entrepreneurship business, and that will make you more confident.
I mean, that's just a
That's
mindset
right.
shift.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
mindset shift lah.
there are all those habits that come along with that, right? And then maybe you are really just not in the right sector. You gotta move on, right? So
so let's
it's a
move on
more
to the
profound
next
discussion.
one
But
then.
yes. What's
one.
next?
For
What's
I
next?
is,
Well, what do you think it is?
I saw the answer. So
Well, I stands for inclusiveness. We are now living in a world where people are living longer. Average life expectancy has grown, and we have multi-generation workforce working in an organization, right? So we need to embrace inclusivity, and DEI is a big thing in organizations. And of course, now with AI, you need to the whole idea is you need to embrace technology. Don't forget about being inclusive, right? In technology. How do you harness technology? And N was easy because I'm a marketer, stands for noticeable. How do you be a personal brand? And not just for to look for a role, but within your organization, right? How do you establish yourself as a go-to person? What are you known for? So this is really, really relevant. And I'm sure, Dawn, you would appreciate as well, right? Because you are an influencer and you build a personal brand.
yeah.
She never stopped one. When the wedding, still doing content, everything. Yeah.
Just to carry not my wedding, someone
Yeah,
else's
yeah,
wedding.
someone else's wedding, but yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, but I think noticeable is so important. I just wanted to share a story about being noticeable also, even if you're just an employee. So I was watching a Korean drama. I know you're going to judge me again.
I never judge. I'm very inclusive one. Okay.
So in this Korean drama, it was quite interesting because this lady lost the job to another lady, and she just stood out because she was so different. Everyone turned out in the usual corporate suits for the interview. This lady showed up in like casual, and then like the interviewers asked her, "Oh, very casual, why?" And she had the perfect answer. She said like, "Well, I am applying for the role of a marketer. I'm not gonna meet clients. That's what your job description said. But like, this is who I am to showcase my personality. And I think what's important for you to understand in this interview is who I am as a person and what kind of energy I can bring to your team." And in the interview, she just did like, really like energy stuff. So she was dancing and just like, like that also called interview. Okay. But she got the job instead of the other lady. Yeah,
I'm not so sure if you can recreate this in the real world.
Yeah, maybe like marketing and certain rules can. But I think what was like cool to watch was the fact that even for an employee role, there are different ways of being noticeable.
Mm,
It has to be relevant to your job, of course. Don't go and be all showy if your job requires you to be very meticulous and look at data and not spot all the mistakes. Then that won't make sense. But I think noticeable, like what you pointed out, is so important.
I think noticeable can also be about executive presence, right? What are you being known for within the organization?
Yes.
And I feel like the hallmark of being noticeable, right, is when an organization create a job for you. Right? That means there's none of this role out there, right? But because
talking about me?
because you are who you are, right? And then because of this person, let's create a job. That's very noticeable, right? Create a role for this person. Yeah, and it's not just about Instagram or hala, like just being seen. I'm not social you, or not LinkedIn, whatever.
But it's also about all the people who they move on in different stages of their life and they don't want to commit to a full 9 to 5 anymore. But I see organizations being flexible and calling them back as a part-time, as a consultant. People will be like, my job or my industry cannot moonlight. Then how come these people can moonlight? Because it's like they break the rules for these people because of the value and how noticeable they are.
And you know what actually
Personal story.
shaped my perspective? Because for I think more than 15 years, I was working for big brands, right? So my name is synonymous with the brand, but at the end of the day, I'm just one of the employee, right? So when I left my job, I took a corporate career break, and I began to realize that I was actually a frog in a well.
Really?
That's so much things I do not know out there, and I myself certified as a coach. I work as a coach, and then I started to become a LinkedIn trainer when I was a coach, because helping these people go back to work moms, back to work dads, people who took a career break or displaced, right? So I actually, because of my background as a marketer, I helped them build their brand, personal brand. Then I begin to realize, hey, actually, it's so important to position themselves back to work. And that also changed my perspective. I said, hey, why can't I do it for myself, right? When I'm doing it for others. So that was a pivotal moment. Yes.
Can you share a bit of tips on how someone who is an introvert can be noticeable? Any examples?
Wait, are you introvert first? Because you always ask this introvert thing.
But be inclusive for our audience.
But do you think you're an introvert?
I'm an extrovert introvert. I'm an extrovert. And then I need to recover if the people are not the right energy or the right vibe. But then if the people are the right energy and right vibe, I can be an extrovert all the way without needing to recover.
Okay.
Does that even make sense?
It doesn't make sense. To me, it's just she met the CN people, she want to go home.
Then recover.
Don't need to be too, framework on that. But
So I'm a good example. I'm actually an introvert.
Okay.
So I'm an introvert but functional extrovert.
Fair. I understand.
Yeah, because of my role, right? I have to get out there it
yeah.
becomes like part of my DNA.
Yeah.
But I actually prefer to be at home reading my book. But actually, back to your question, right? How, as an introvert, how do you brand yourself? I think it's important about being authentic, knowing what you stand for, what do you advocate for. So for example, after I published my book, I have a stand, right, about helping people to reinvent themselves. So I've been very consistent about that. And of course, it must be of value to people as well.
Do you have any examples of maybe ex-colleagues or people you have met where they are employees and they are introverts? They're not in a role that requires them to be an extrovert either, and yet they were noticeable or impactful on you? Several.
In fact, when I had an ex-colleague, she dressed very well. She was one of my team who does all the liaison. We were working in the bank, right? She was doing all the liaison with the RMs, anything to do with external facing, you go. I will stay behind. But when I had a conversation with her, she actually confessed she's actually an introvert. So the difference between an introvert and an extrovert is introvert gets energy from solitude. Extroverts get energy from people, right? So when I go for big events, I go for parties, I need to be very intentional about it. I cannot just go there and then be a social butterfly. It just takes away my energy. And when I do that, I will have to maybe take some time off to recharge. Whereas extroverts, naturally, when they go to parties, their batteries get recharged.
It's true.
So that's the difference, right? So when I had conversation with this colleague, and I was very surprised to know that she's an introvert. And she because she's a marketer, she also shared that because of her job, right, she requires her to do that, and she's really passionate about what she does. So that's how she wired herself.
Any stories of people who were not in roles requiring functional extroverts to be a thing? Like maybe if you're in data analysis roles, more operations of finance, admin, don't have to deal so much with people. How then can they be noticeable?
Yes, I do have friends who are like that. She was in HR. Alright, obviously where she comes from is really she focused on her expertise, right? She's very passionate about human capital. She's very focused about developing organizational culture. So she talks about it. She gets herself on blogs. She gets herself on LinkedIn is one good place. That's a professional network. So that's how she consistently talk about what she believes in.
Yeah. Oh, you remember
okay.
Henry, the guy that came on our show
Yes,
before?
yes.
The one that runs a very
The
big tech
tech
podcast.
Yeah.
He's very introverted.
Yeah,
and his
he
whole
is
thing, he does not need to, talk to anyone. I mean, okay, like from a product development, you still need to talk to some people. More often than not, it's very technical. So actually, he's quite a good classic case of this, right?
He
like you do
is,
a
he
random
is.
podcast and then somehow it worked.
Yeah, if you guys want to watch our interview with Henry, we'll put it in the
We'll
link
put it,
below.
Yeah, then you can look at the list. We got a lot of things already. So yes. Check it out.
I also have a story to share. So I have this friend. He's working in finance. And it's a role where we all don't like lah because why the payroll late? Why the receipts haven't come? Then when client have pay money, they go to the client managers, then we kena, So like finance not the most well liked But this guy, he really was very noticeable in our organization because he was just so hardworking.
Oh.
Never thought one barely thought. Like we were at a company retreat and he never even said a single word until I addressed him directly. Hey, what's your story? Right, then he started opening up. And after that, then shut up again and just listen to everyone else talk. But everyone knows and remembers him. And he's been in there for a really long time. He can't be replaced. Because we all just remember him as very fast to help us. And when he doesn't get back to us, we know there's a reason. Like either he's sick or he's tied up with something, but we know that he will be able to get back to us. And if he doesn't have the answers, he will go and find it. Yeah, and I thought that was a very interesting way of being noticeable.
It is. I think it's a reputation,
skills.
Right? It's quite interesting. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's a very good example because, noticeable is also about what impact you make on people, right? That people remember you for.
For every interaction in the past, right? Yeah.
So ultimately it's not what you say, but it's what people say about you.
Yes, because this was really, it really stood out to me because prior to that, I've dealt with other finance people in his same role. And wow, I hated every single time I needed to talk to him. It's like, I need to go and find that person again for the receipts. And when the client is late, then there is no empathy. It's like, it's your mistake. I have to clean up the mess that you made and I am the one taking the heat. But when it happens with this guy, he's very understanding. He apologizes for missing. He offers to talk to the client if needed, but we never make him do that. That's the reason why client servicing is there for, right? So it's just the way he makes us feel each time.
Absolutely, yes.
Actually, that's a really good tip for introverts. So you may have limited human interactions, but how you make every human feel from those little or chance interactions could be your noticeability.
Yes, absolutely.
Fair, but I just think it's gonna take longer. But anyway, that's a different thing.
How if you are very, especially if the person had a bad experience before you, then it's not really longer. Because the next experience that's so good, it really stands out in your mind.
Fair, relative.
Okay, we're moving on. So after N, what is the next one? It's V.
Vulnerable.
So it was a tough letter, right? I was thinking, what word is I'm going to use? So vulnerability, I decided, right? Because in organization, I work for so many organizations, in some roles, in some organizations, people's ego is aligned with, is corresponding to the job title, the ego. Right.
Can you elaborate?
So it's important that when they're being vulnerable, is being authentic. Sometimes, don't think that you know it all, right? Don't have a high ego, but really being humble. And when you do not know it, just admit it and ask for help. And obviously, depending on the context as well, right? If you are a leader, you cannot tell people that you cannot declare that you don't know anything because you will destabilize the team. So it's important that depending on the context, you do not need to know it all. Just acknowledge and be inclusive, right? And be able to take different people's perspective.
Any good examples or stories to share of leaders who have done that well without jeopardizing their own expertise.
Yes.
I would think it's a baseline for all good leaders. You
Yeah.
must be able to convince the team that you know your stuff, meanwhile sort things out.
Yeah,
Right,
but like
I
the
feel like it's a
vulnerability
thing.
part in having the courage to admit that you don't know everything and to learn it from someone else more junior than you. The how to do that is also quite important.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, so I've worked for bosses who the boss actually is experienced, but he's always asking for opinion. He doesn't have a stand. So that's extreme, right? You need to have a stand, you need to have point of view, but there are also certain times that you need to ask for help.
Yeah, I think that is a bit more. It's a bit more of an art than a science.
Yes.
At least in my worldview, lah. I feel like there are different type of leaders, yeah, but there's no like, is this better or is the other better? It's like
And
humility sometimes can kill the organization.
Reggie, I want to ask you, since
Yeah.
you are torn among here, right? What's your perspective of vulnerability from the male perspective?
I don't really struggle with this. I feel like if I don't know, I will ask, right? But there are certain things that you cannot review, and there are certain things that you have to ask from external opinion, right? Because you can never be sure that the information will not travel, right?
True. So sometimes asking internally.
You're asking internally. You are on the basis that of course everybody have their own trust circle, right? And then, but as you extend that information further, the trust circle just breaks, right? So once the information go out, does it like what Adeline said? Does it destabilize the group? So you cannot just go around telling everybody everything or asking everybody everything, right? And more importantly, I think you got to right size the information.
Yeah.
Right, because you ask the tech person for the tech information, right? Then you ask the marketer for the marketing information. Somehow, at a certain level, everyone has something to say, and you let them say, just don't listen. That's my worldview. No, it's two different things because you got to train the team to dare to say, right? Because if they don't say, the first layer cracks already because there's no input, right? You want people to have input, you want to put them out. But as the decision maker, you must learn to filter who is accurate, who is not, who is right, who is wrong.
Not every opinion.
Not every opinion. Most opinion don't matter. That is my worldview.
So from your perspective, right, do you feel that men are not as willing to be vulnerable as compared to women, or vice
Whoa,
versa?
it is a gender
No, I don't think it's a
thing now.
gender thing. I don't feel like it's a gender
Okay.
thing. Maybe some male leaders have a certain alpha energy to it, but I don't feel like it's a. I think we have moved on from that gender,
I think it's cooler for men to show that they're vulnerable these days than in the older era. But on this point, I wanted to share an example of a director I met recently, and I thought the way he demonstrated that vulnerability and not the lack of knowledge, it was very meaningful to watch. So basically, the lack of knowledge is on the social media tools lah. So he has
His
Gen
uncle,
Z,
right?
yes, his
That
uncle.
don't know how to use TikTok, right?
Yeah, correct,
okay.
correct.
Uncle
Yeah,
就是你
yeah,
了
correct. So
okay.
he's very good at speaking. He has a lot of experience. He's an expert. Speaks at conferences. Speaks with a lot of leaders and the face of the company. But I met him on a shoot, and the people managing the shoot were all Gen Zs, and he was just very open to hearing their ideas. So he would contribute first, right? He had like all these pointers in his head, and he wanted to deliver it in a certain way because that's the only way he knows. But the Gen Z people were telling him, "Oh yeah, can we try again? This time we did," and he was very open to trying it. And then they explained why it had to. So he was saying like, "No, but this one is better because we have to do it in this way." Then he said, "Yeah, I get it." But then on TikTok, people like this kind of style. If it's too scripted, too formal, it doesn't fly. And he respected those, and he did it again. I thought like that was lovely to watch, and it showed like it's an area where your credibility won't break lah, because it's true the younger generation use and consume these platforms which not everyone in the older generation
Of course. Yeah, fair.
I thought that was a
good
interesting way of
story.
showing his vulnerability.
But once and for all, don't think men are not vulnerable. It's just different, right? And,
Different ways of
yeah, it's being
demonstrating it,
applied differently.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay, so what about the last E?
Empathy. Empathy is important, right? Especially now, in this time when everything is AI, right? Well, we talk about streamlining business processes. How do we even have AI taking over your job? I think the cognitive skills, your emotional skills is also important to be able to collaborate with AI as well. And that's something that AI cannot take away from you, right? So that's very important. So interestingly, as I write this book, at that time there was no AI. So now that I reflect on this, hey, this is so relevant. Some stars align, right? And N is for networking. As you know, your net work is your net worth. You've heard this, right? So it's so important. I have benefited in my own career. In fact, other than my first job, all my jobs are referred by people I know. So it's so important, right? And even when I started my coaching business, my first few clients were all through my network.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yeah, now back to the show.
Adeline, can you share some tips with the introverts of our podcast? On
Our podcast got so many introvert, man.
There are some. Be inclusive, okay?
Partly ask for introvert.
Because extroverts don't need help, they know already.
Extrovert need help. Some of them are socially
But not
awkward.
in the question that I'm asking.
Okay, go.
Yeah, so as an introvert yourself, right? What tips would you recommend or give fellow introverts on how to build this network, especially when building these networks and dealing with people suck the energy for introverts?
Yes, I actually have a chapter on that written especially for introverts. Okay, so what I do is very intentional, who I want to hang out with, the group. And when I go for events, right, conferences is very common, I would do a bit of research before that so that I know, okay, what am I going to get out of it? Who are the 3 people I want to meet? So that becomes like a task, because as an introvert, I am actually more task focused, right? So I need to then break it down into tasks. So obviously I set my bar a bit low. Then when I get it done, I say, hey, I get more confidence the next time round when I go for events. I get better, right? Maybe instead of 3 people, I need 5 people. Instead of 5 people, I need 10 people. That's how we grow. And also, I talk about it being intention, right? So I actually have what I call networking funds. That's important because you actually know that you set aside time to go out and have coffee with people. And who are the few people that you're going to tap on, like entertainment funds? And all
Last time is E.N.T, right?
Yeah, ENT.
In the big organization, then you come out, no more E.N.T, you must allocate your fund.
So this is my entertainment budget.
Right. Those are really good tips.
I second that because I don't spray and pray, right? I call it spray and pray. That means you go and talk to everybody. You go to an event and then and all that, right? I don't. I'm very targeted. I send a very clear email to who I want to meet, very clear LinkedIn message, so yeah, and I'm not an extrovert, so I think it works.
You talk to anyone and everyone, man.
Yes, that's why you are the spray and pray. I don't. I'm very targeted. That's why
why
I love to go there working with you.
Rely on me to go events, right?
Yeah. When we go events together, it's amazing. She will go and like, no. Then she's like, hey, this person you should talk to. So, then I go lah. Right? So it's great.
Yeah, sounds like I need to tag along with you.
I like meeting people because I find that even for the most junior of people, younger folks, I learn a lot from everyone. Yeah, and it doesn't matter whether they are successful or not, or they've already made it or not, or their gender or their age or whatever it is, right? I realize like I can learn a lot of things. Even like sometimes taxi drivers teach me a lot of things, provided I'm not working on my phone when I'm taking the cab lah, right? So I can learn some stuff from them, see a different perspective, and that usually informs my worldview of other matters in a different manner. So I like talking, but same thing, like if the energy very toxic, I become like you guys, I want to retreat really, going to go and recover, maybe like 1-2 days, don't talk to anyone, no events, then I'm back to my usual self.
Fair. And what's the last, the T?
Yes, what's a T?
T, transdisciplinary learning.
And what does
I
that
like
mean?
that. I like that.
Multidisciplinary learning.
So
it's about learning skills from different domains. Okay, so there's this debate, right? Is it better to be a generalist or specialist?
Yes.
I think it's a false dichotomy, but anyway, please continue. Yeah.
So my own conviction, I believe that you need to have a superpower skills, skills that you build over time. You are really good at what you are doing. So for me, my superpower skill is marketing. Right? So that's my main domain, 20 over years, so cannot take away from me. But along the way, I chalk up skills. Right, I learn
Other general
coaching
skills.
because it helps me be a better leader because I need that in my job. I learned about technology. I actually went on AI courses. I learned about marketing technology because it helps me in my role. But I don't need to know enough about technology to do the coding, and I don't want to. I also go and learn about data storytelling because I need it at my job. And so over time, I realized that having that multidisciplinary learning helps shapes my perspective. I'm able to see things from a different perspective and able to ask different questions, right? And that built my connective thinking skills, which is so important, right? Critical thinking skills, especially more in the AI stage. And I never really intentionally go out to do that, but it's just because I'm curious. So along the way, hey, this is something that is interesting, cool, I want to learn. So I go and learn. So unconsciously, I was stacking up courses, skills. So that helps me. Yeah.
You mentioned the word curious. So actually in Reinvent, even though there's no C in there, curiosity would be a very big element too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is your framework, yeah? And based on this framework, how is it going to prepare the person for the next phase of life?
I think we talk about reinvent. It's about having a mindset of permanent reinvention, right? Because the world is moving so fast. I don't think we'll get ever this slow anymore. It will be even faster, right? So think of reinvent as, mobile phone, right? You have mobile upgrades. Every few months, version 3.1, 3.2. It's the same for us, right? We need to constantly upgrade ourselves. So I call that a mindset of permanent reinvention.
Right.
You need to be agile and you need to be curious. So the fundamental bit of it is you need to be curious enough to know, okay, what are the emerging trends? How is it shaping your work? How is it impacting work? You need to be curious about people, right? And you never know, right? When you connect with people, you are curious, genuinely curious about them. They could actually lead you to new pathways.
So they need to keep installing new OS.
Absolutely. So I thought that, this is... Yeah.
So that's never going to end, is it, in your view?
Yeah.
Because I think some people are quite tired of this, like, we got to keep reinventing. You know?
So don't
rather
think
watch
of,
Korean drama.
Yeah, so don't
but I
think
don't
of,
think you are, like, you keep reinventing. So yeah. So what's your
think
take
of
on that?
reinventing as something major, right? It's an evolution. So even when I wrote this book, I say, hey, when I look back, I say little things, right? I actually, in my journey, unconsciously, I've reinvented myself. So it's evolution, actually. So like, for example, I recently co-founded an AI startup, leveraging all my skills as a CMO, marketing, right? I helped the startup scale AI adoption across enterprises. Why I decided to do that was because it's congruent to what I do. It's about the future of work. And that gives me perspective, right? When I coach my clients, I say, okay, these are the trends. This is what's coming up. How can you be future ready? How can you be future fit? So I try to look at congruence in what I do as well. And again, this is something that came along when I built my network with people and all connections over the years. I nurture the network and people know about me and say, hey, why don't you come and join my team and be one of the co-founder?
Yeah. No. And I like it that you said that, it is sometimes a bit subconscious. Like, you're not very clear,
Yes.
like, but actually as you move along, you kind of evolve already, right?
Sometimes the OS update also is just a security patch.
Enough.
No, but I mean seriously,
Analogies after analogies.
because I love the way she described it. It's like updating your software, right? So if let's say it feels too tiring, but maybe the change, like what you going back to what you say about how instead of meeting so many people, you just set a target of 3 or 5. Maybe the OS update is just one change. Then less tiring, right?
Yeah, I mean, you did point out that you have a dominant skill, right? In that sense, right? So you feel like people should have a dominant skill and everything is just around it, or what is your take on? Because I think ultimately, when people think of reinventing, right, they want to reinvent to continue to be, of value to the market, right?
Yeah.
So like, how does that kind of play out for most people?
So when I first left corporate, I said, I have so many options. I can do so many things. Then I said, I need to take a break. I need to take a pause and calibrate. What is important for me? Then I decided, okay, I'm going to align with my dominant skills. Moving to a next chapter doesn't mean that you throw away your past. It's about leveraging on your past, right? What is it that you can bring along to help you in the next chapter? So I've been very blessed, right? Because when I start my coaching practice, there are so many coaches out there right now, right?
Everyone is a life coach.
Everyone is a life
They
coach.
have not been through life, full stop.
Yeah. and everybody is a career coach.
Yeah. Somehow, they don't have a glorious career, but they're all career coaches.
And
Sorry.
And it's become the lowest point of entry, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
my marketing skills do help to position myself. I know how to position myself. I know how to brand myself. I know like what am I how do I differentiate myself, right? And so and because of that, I realized, hey, I can solve a problem. So I actually am helping coaches or solopreneurs brand themselves as well to move to the next chapter. So it's
Okay.
again back to entrepreneurial thinking, right? With the skills I have, what problems can I solve?
Yeah, so well and good lah. I think a lot of the general premise of what you've pointed out is, like not new fundamentally, right? But you kind of put it together into a framework where you think people can kind of recreate that, right? But more importantly, I want to understand a little bit more about the sustainability element of this, right? Because we were trying to get people to like learn new things, upskill. I listen to it so sian, like it's not from you, but it's across the board, right? People get very tired. It's like your life is so intense, you
Yeah.
still want to reinvent, like there are success cases, but to a lot of people it just sounds very tiring.
Yeah.
So what would you tell them? What was the system to kind of go there?
I can totally empathize
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
So what I do and I learn from experience, right, is number one, okay, so this is my budget for learning. Okay, if I bust my learning, I'm not going to spend any more. So I actually very intentional. Okay, what are the 1 or 2 skills I need to learn this year? So I don't get distracted by shiny objects.
Yeah,
So that helps. Okay, done enough learning. Okay, now how do I apply it? And can I earn it? So I slow down. I intentionally slow down. So reinvent doesn't mean that you like Wonder Woman, right? But it's actually up to you to design that process. So I take pauses as well because of what I do now. I've got more autonomy of time. I actually spend time to learn art. I actually do painting. I never like art. I still don't love art. But
Then why do you do it?
well, but I've learned to appreciate the mindfulness that comes with painting. Because when I'm focused on painting, I'm not very good at it, right? So I have to focus on every brush, every stroke. And then when I'm doing that, automatically my mind just switched off. So every time when I go for art classes, I'm thinking, hi, no, I must go for another art class. But when I get out from the session, I really felt recharged. So I said, okay, I'm going back again. So really finding things where you can take pause. So I take mini pauses, or if I can afford it, I'll take longer pauses. That really helps.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. I mean, it's very practical because for me, sometimes, these days there's an assumption that everything you can learn on your own, right? Yeah, which is quite fair. If you put in the effort, you probably can structure some things and you get to a certain level. But there's some beauty in going for programs and courses. Like someone already prepare for you. You just sit down and just absorb. Just absorb.
Yeah,
Right.
I find that when you absorb in a class, it get more tired, So one of the tips for the audience is, collaborate. You cannot be a super person, human, because there will always be people who can complement you. So when I started on this journey, I was very intent. I cannot be getting myself certified and everything, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a deep pocket. Secondly, I say, hey, let's
It's
be
quite
realistic.
expensive, huh?
Very
To get all the
expensive. Every time
certification.
is like 4-figure to 5-figure.
Wow.
So
I
I
certify
said-
you, okay? You come on the show, I validate you, okay?
Let me advertise.
Okay, come for my workshop.
Yeah. Fair, yeah.
Workshop. Okay. So actually, it helps that I am, very intentional about it and just take small steps.
I like it. Thanks for sharing a lot of good stuff, right? In closing, are there any last things you want to add for our audience? Just so they, maybe take action and don't just down there, Although I think our audience take quite a lot of action.
What are some tips you can give our listeners and audiences?
Although she shared a lot already.
They can, or like a last conclusion takeaway tip.
Yeah.
The one thing they need to know or do in order to make sure they are always reinventing themselves and noticeable.
I would say, number 1, stay curious. Number 2, self-care is very important. Don't forget that, we all have we juggle a few balls, right? The career ball is the one that can bounce back, but know what is a priority for you. That's important.
Okay. Shall we go one round? You remember last time we always do this one round thing. Then we gave up. And now I want to bring this back.
You want to reinvent
Yeah,
the show and bring it
I want to
back.
bring this back. So we used to go one round to talk about what is one thing that we picked up that we find valuable in this conversation, right? So I want us to go one round again. Yeah. So you want to start first?
You don't know what I say. So
Start
you
first is the easiest, right? I tell you.
I think I really like the first E in your framework, which is entrepreneurial thinking. Because I feel, and I see this a lot in the people that I talk to, if they're employees, they don't really take charge of their career. And I think that's a mistake. I love the way how you so succinctly put it, that you're an entrepreneur, which means you own a business, right? You have ownership of something and you own your career. So start thinking about that, taking control of your entire path, whether it's to reinvent yourself into something brand new or to switch industries or to simply just survive and get promoted or whatever your career aspirations are. I think that takeaway was one of the biggest that you've said on this show.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yeah. What about yourself? What do you find the most interesting in this conversation?
Well, I find that, this is the first time I'm doing an event with two hosts. And it's really very fun. I came here, I was thinking, okay, what I'm going to say? I basically ditched the question. I said, let's be organic. And I'm actually enjoying this show. Thank you for having me.
Great.
That's what Wine and Shine is about.
Yeah. But that one not good enough. Got a good takeaway that you picked up that you think after this conversation, whether it reaffirms your ideas or you
Or
picked
maybe
up new
next time you
things.
rewrite the book, you
Is
add
there
in one
something
new
different?
paragraph.
Yeah. Within the paradigm
Okay.
of
So
enriching
within
yourself.
the paradigm,
Yeah.
I think as I talked through this and I realized that this book was published in November 2022. Fast forward in 2024, it's still relevant, and strangely, it is contextualized in the age of AI.
Yeah.
He actually is still relevant. In fact, in the next couple of months, I have got speaking engagements lined up. It's about reinventing in the new world of work. So I never realized that the foundation, what I did 2 years ago, were just now finally momentum is picking up. So
Nice.
I'm really grateful for that.
Nice. That's cool.
Yourself, don't skip.
Okay, I never skip. Okay, for me, I think the most important thing that really rung with me was the E.N.T budget. Right? Because a lot of people, when they think of learning a new thing or moving into a new space or changing a career, there's a general tendency of just doing what they can within their means, and people don't kind of think of we gotta allocate some budget into these things, and then what I tell, I remember long ago I did this podcast about how to do with your ang pao money, right? So take your ang pao money, go and chia everybody some coffee, right? But the right people, right? The good people buy their coffee and they can dig their brain for the hour. You'll learn so much.
I actually have a
right?
friend who has $150 to $200 set aside every month for what she calls a networking fund.
Yeah.
And she will try to arrange one meeting every week with either peers, seniors, or even random people that she reaches out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to
exactly.
just buy a meal or a coffee
Yeah.
and just pick their brain.
No, and for me, that is a small step of reinventing yourself. Right,
is,
because you
yeah.
reach out to maybe someone that's not in the same sector, parallel, especially when you're very senior already, right? At some point, you already know a lot of things in your vertical. The synergy from other verticals is very important. So you want to kind of go and do that, right? And big company got E.N.T budget lah. If you don't have, then you spend your money, get it done, right?
This
yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Okay, can I share one story
Yes,
which I missed
yes,
out? I
yes.
think that will be really helpful for the audience.
Yes.
You can maybe slice it in.
Great.
So I want to just share about a client I have coached on how he reinvented himself. He was in his 50s, banker, top-notch banker, win a lot of awards. When he came to me, he was bankrupt from a bad divorce. And in Singapore, if you're bankrupt, you can't go back to the bank, right? And he was stuck. What do I do now? I've been in the banking industry for 30 years. So I took a look at his skill sets. I took a look at his CV and say, hey, look, what skills do you have? I repositioned him using a marketer's hat. How do I position him differently? How do I look at his skills? And then suddenly there were people who were keen to talk to him. Casinos were actually wanting to hire him because of his network. He was still keeping in touch with all his high net worth clients. And then concierge companies were very interested to have him on board to help them shape the product, to develop a concierge service for the high net worth. And then there was also property companies who were prepared to actually meet him because, they wanted him to help sell properties, overseas properties to the high net worth clients, right? And he knows the nuances of different people from different cultures, and that were the skills. And then, of course, there is foundations, non-profit organizations who are interested to have him on board because as a board member to lead fundraising, right, for the organization. So that is a good example of being entrepreneur, right? You do not think of what job do I do now, because obviously he cannot be a banker, but what skills does he have that can actually be valuable to solve different problems. And suddenly, when I reframe that, he has so much possibilities.
Nice. Cool stuff.
All right.
Okay.
So thank you, Adeline, for joining us on Rise and Shine. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll put the links to the other 2 episodes that we name dropped earlier on, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where can they get their book, or where can they find
you? You can get my book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon as well as on Kindle.
Yeah. And they want to connect with you, where do they connect?
Connect me on LinkedIn.
Okay,
All right,
nice.
there you go, guys. We have Adeline on the show, and thank you for listening.